We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph Meseches Eruvin. This is Eruvin Daf 35a. The Gemara here is explaining a Tosefta. The Tosefta seems to indicate that the machlokas, when a person, let's say, doesn't have the key to a particular cabinet that's locked, so there's a machlokas whether or not if the Eruv is in that cabinet, whether that's a good Eruv or not. So the Gemara had said before that machlokas was taking place on Yontiv, and the problem is that there's a Tosefta which says that it depends whether the key is whether it's in the city or the field. Seems to be a Shabbos issue of carrying the key. So how do we understand this Tosefta? That's what the Gemara is trying to explain right now. Gemara says, Chisure mechser v'hachi katani. There's words missing. It has to be read as follows. Nosnu b'migdal. Let's say, again, the Eruv is put into this cabinet, v'noal b'fanav, and it's locked, v'avad hamafteach, and the key is lost. Hareza Eruv, that is going to be a good Eruv. B'amed devarim amurim b'yomtiv. When is this true? This is only true on Yontiv. Aval b'Shabbos. But when it comes to Shabbos, ein Eruvo Eruv. Now you have a problem taking apart the cabinet, so it's not going to be a good Eruv. However, nimsa hamafteach, if the key is found, bein bo'ir, bein b'sada, ein Eruvo Eruv. Now that part's going on Shabbos now that we changed the text. So if the key is found, it doesn't matter if it's in a city or if it's in a field. It makes no difference. It is not going to be a good Eruv, because the Tanakama holds that you're not allowed to carry on Shabbos, even within the city. We don't say, we're not lenient like Rabbi Shimon's opinion, that Gagos and Karfifos are all considered to be one Rishus. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, but Rabbi Eliezer says, Bo'ir Eruvo Eruv. In the city, it's going to be a good Eruv, because again, you can carry in the city through Gagos and Karfifos. But Besada ain't Eruvo Eruv. In the fields, it's not going to be a good Eruv because you can't carry on Shabbos. The Gemara explains. Bo'ir Eruvo Eruv Rabbi Shimon. In the city, the Eruv is good. That follows Rabbi Shimon. Diamar echad gagos ve'echad chatzeres ve'echad karfifos rishus achas hein lekelim sheshavsu b'sochan. Whether it be roofs, whether it be courtyards, whether it be other enclosed areas, they're all considered one rishus for any kelim that are resting within them on Shabbos. Besada ein eruv Eruv kirabanan. But in the field, it's not going to be a good Eruv. That follows the opinion of the Rabbanan. And this last line, the Bach actually says to take out this besada ein eruv Eruv kirabanan tevos elim yusarim. You should take out this line because it doesn't really make sense. That's not true. In the field, even according to Rabbi Shimon, you don't have the leniency of carrying. Rashi over here says, Aval b'Shabbos ein eruvo Eruv de lo sharu le Rabbanan lemistar, because again, the Rabbanan do not permit you to take apart this cabinet on Shabbos. It's an issue of muksa, as we said before. Nimsa ha'mafteach b'Shabbos. If the mafteach is found on Shabbos, ein eruvo Eruv, it's not going to be an Eruv. The less lay to Rabbi Shimon. They don't hold of Rabbi Shimon. V'had Rabbi Shimon in Perek Kol Gagos. Rabbi Shimon said this in Perek Kol Gagos. Now, the Gemara until this point had assumed that the cabinet we're talking about, again, is made out of bricks. And the machlokas was, can you take it apart? Let's say you don't have the key in order to get to the Eruv. That was the machlokas up until this point. Rabba of Rav Yosef Damri Tarvaya, but Rabba and Rav Yosef give a different answer to understanding our Mishnah. Hacha b'migdal shel eitz askin, and we're actually talking about a wooden migdal in the Mishnah. And so what's the issue? Why does one opinion in the Mishnah seem to say that you can destroy it in order to get to the Eruv? And the other one says, no, if you don't have the key, you can't get in, you can't get to the Eruv. The answer is, Damar savar klihu ve'ein binyan b'kelim ve'ein stira b'kelim. One opinion holds that a wooden migdal is considered a kli, and there's no problem of building or destroying when it comes to kelim. Umar savar oelhu, and the other one says it's considered an oel, or it's considered like a binyan. It's a real building, and of course there's a problem of stira if you take apart a binyan, a building. Rashi over here says, Ve'ein stira b'kelim, v'boy sasarle. There's no stira b'kelim. Therefore, if he wants to, he can destroy it according to that opinion. And the Gemara says, Uvepluksa dahani tanoi. This machlokus about whether or not the migdal is considered a kli or is it considered to be a binyan, that's a machlokus in the following tanoim in the following Mishnah. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah. Hikesh al gabe sheda tevo migdal tamein. Let's say the person he knocks or he bangs against the sheda tevo migdal, it's going to be tamei. Rabbi Nechemia of Rabbi Shimon metarin. Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Shimon say tar in this case. Rashi over here explains. Hikesh zav begrofo al gabe sheda. Basically, the zav, he is punching with his fist. He's punching the sheda tevo and the migdal. So tameim imnei shehisiton. Since he's caused it to move, since he's used his force and moved these items, they become tamei. Okagon shayalavush beis yad. Now the case here obviously is he's wearing something over his hand, so that he's not touching it directly. Otherwise, it would be tamei by touching it. Inami shekishu bechatichas eitz shabiyado. He has a piece of wood in his hand, and he's hitting it with that. So you have here a machlokas whether or not the hesit hazav, when the zav moves these items, are they tamei or not? The Tanakama says tameim. And Reb Nechemia and Rabbi Shimon say tar, and the Gemara suggests, "My lab b'hakamiflagi." Isn't this the issue? Mar savar klihu. One of them says this item is a kli. Umar savar oelu. One says it's an oel. In other words, if it is a kli, then it's going to become tamei. If it's an oel, it's not going to become tamei. Amar Abaye said, V'tizbra, is that logical? Vatanya, we learned in a brisa. Ohel v'nisa tameh. If you have an ohel and there's hesed hazav in such a case, it gets moved. That is going to be tameh. It doesn't matter that it's considered a binyan. And kli ve'eno nisatar. And if you have a kli that cannot be moved, then it is tar. It has nothing to do with whether it has the status of being an ohel or a kli. It just has to do with whether it's movable or not. Rashi here explains, ohel hu, first the Gemara said ohel hu. It's considered an ohel v'lo mekabel tumah, it's not mekabel tumah. That's what the Gemara initially thought, that when it has a shame ohel, it's not mekabel tumah. He said, v'tizbura, the time of misham ohel v'lav ohel. Do you think this has anything to do with whether it's classified as an ohel or not? V'nisat she'eno tako yafa. Nisat means that it's able to be moved. It's not fastened well. If when you hit it, it moves, then it's tameh. But let's say it's a kli, but it's attached well. If it's a kuo, kaved harbe, it's either attached, fastened well, or it's very heavy. She'eno nisid machmasa, that's not going to move because of him. Tar, then in that case it's tar. So clearly, it has nothing to do with whether it has a shame kli or a shame oel when we talk about hesed hazav. So that's what Abaye says over again. V'tizbra v'tanya. Oel v'nisatame, kli ve'eno nisatar. V'katani seifa, and it also says in the seifa, v'im hayu nisotin tameim, that if they are moved, then they're considered tamei. Zaklal, here's the rule, nisan machmas kocho tamei, if it gets moved through the koach of the zav, it's tamei. Machmas ra'ada, if it gets moved because of the shaking, tahor, in that case it's going to be tahor. Rashi here explains. V'katani nami seifa, to kamaisa dika shal gabe sheda, im hayu nisotin tamei, and afilu Reb Nechemya. For Rabbi Shimon, it even says that according to Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Shimon, even according to those positions, they're the ones in this Mishnah who said tar before, but they say that if it is movable, it is going to be tameh. Alma tamayu lav misham oelu. You see, it has nothing to do with ohel. And it even continues. Zaklal nisid machmas kocho shehised as akli o esa oel mamish nisko mimoshav mashu. If you move it from the area it's resting, whether it be a kli or whether it be an ohel, then it's going to be tameh. Machmas ra'ada, shetafach baragla bakarka. Ra'ada means, let's say, he bangs against the earth with his feet. Machmas ninua hakarka, and the earth shakes, and because of that, nisar hakli, the kli moves. Afal pisha nitak min ha'aretz, even though it moves a little from the earth. Tar, that's already going to be tar. The koach kocho, that's already indirect koach. It's not his direct koach that's moving it. It's indirect. It's not considered hesed hazav in that case. But in any case, you see over here has nothing to do. This mission has nothing to do with whether shade the tevu migdal is considered a kli or an oel. So the Gemara says, Abaye says, the kuliyal mehesed machmas kocho tame machmas ra'ada tar. Everybody agrees, if it's moved because of his direct strength, then it's going to be tame. If it's moved because of this indirect, because of the shaking, it's going to be tahar. V'hacha bera'ada machmas kocho askinan. And here, in this Mishnah where we had a machlokas here, by hikesh al gabe shei the tevu migdal, whether it's tame and Reb Nechemia and Rabbi Shimon say tar, the issue is, what if it shakes because of his koach? That's the issue is as follows. The Mar Savar have a Hesed, one says that's considered Hesed. Umar Savar lo have a Hesed, one says it's not considered Hesed. Rashi here explains the Kuli Alma Afilu Reb Nechemia Hisid Mamish Machmas Kocho Tamei Vafilu Oel. Even Rabbi Nechemia agrees, if it moves because of his Koach Mamish, then it's going to be Tamei, even if it is an Oel, even if it's not a Kli. Machmas Ru'ada Tar Vafilu Kli. If it moves because, again, this indirect fashion, then it's going to be Tar, even if it's a Kli. The case over here is he directly hits the item. Velo naskan, that doesn't move it. Velo hustu, it doesn't move because of that. Elo roadu, it shakes through his direct koach. So it's some other kind of unique situation. In that situation, that's the machlokas. One person says that's considered hesed again, and the other opinion says that's not considered hesed. And he continues, umasnisin b'maimuk minan law. And so in that case, what are we gonna? If that's the case, how do we understand our Mishnah? Rashi says, umasnisin de eruv b'maimuk minan law. Now, according to this, our Mishnah, when it comes to eruv, what's the issue? Because according to everybody, if it's a large migdal, it's going to be considered an ohel. Why should it be an eruv? You can't destroy it because you're not allowed to destroy an ohel. And let's say it's small enough that it doesn't even hold 40 saw of liquid, then it's considered a kli. My time with the Rabbi Eliezer, what would be the reason of Rabbi Eliezer? Of course you can take it apart. It's considered a kli. So now we have to explain again. We have to give another explanation for the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Abaye v'Rava damri tarvayu. Abaye and Rava both say, b'minol v'kater b'misna askinon. Rashi over here says, kater b'misna kosher haminol b'chevel. It's tied, the lock is tied with a rope. Uvoi sakino lemifseke. And you need a knife in order to cut it. Rashi here says, uvoi sakino lemifseke di'avimotzi lemifseke b'yodei shaper dami afilu Rabbi Eliezer. If you could cut it with your hand, it would be fine even according to Rabbi Eliezer. Dein chaticha asur ela b'mechuber. Cutting is only a problem when it's mechuber lakarka, when it's attached to the ground. Avalacha mekalkelhu, but over here you're just destroying the rope. The shari would be permitted if you did it with your hand. Kenetanya Meseches Beitza chosama shebekela matir umafkiv v'chosech. That's what it says Meseches Beitza. V'avagav dehacha oelu. Now, even though here it's an oel, v'amrin on hasam shebekarka aser lachtoch, that if it's karka, it's a problem, and this is an oel, it's basically considered mechuber lakarka, it's considered a binyan. Gezeira derabanan, it's a problem on a derabanan level. Demichsi kesoser v'lo soser binyan mamish. That's a gezeira derabanan, that it looks like soser, it's not real soser. V'lo soser binyan mamish hu da psichas delas b'yami, you're just opening a door. Came in the shvusu lo gazru ala ben hashmasha. So Rashi says that issue, the fact that it's an ohel and you're opening up this door by cutting the rope, that's not going to be an issue. It's only derabanan. As we said, the ben hashmashas, we're not concerned about derabanans, and therefore we're not concerned about a situation where you need to violate a derabanan to get to the eruv. So that's not going to be an issue. The issue over here is that you need a knife in order to cut it. Tanakama savar lak Rabbi Yossi damar kol hakelim nitolin b'shabbatz chutz mimaser hagadol v'yosef shel machresha. The Tanakama says it's permitted to use the knife to cut the rope. He follows Rabbi Yossi that says all kelim can be moved on Shabbos except for the maser hagadol and the yosef shel machresha, these large types of kelim which are exceptions. Rabbi Eliezer savar lak Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Eliezer, who says it's a problem, holds like Rabbi Nechemia Damar, who says afilu talis afilu tarvid. Even if you have a talis, even if you have like a spoon, you can only use it for their actual tashmish, and therefore it's a problem moving around its muksa. The obvious question over here is, this is also only an Isser D'Rabbanan, presumably. Meaning, even according to Rabbi Yossi, who says that it's a problem of muksa to take this knife, even according to Rabbi Nechemia, that it's a problem of muksa to take the knife, that's only D'Rabbanan. So we're back to the fact that D'Rabbanans shouldn't be a problem. That actually, Tosas asks that over here. Tosas says, Boy Sakina Lemifsaka Perish HaKontris. He quotes Rashi, and then he says Veino Nir the Chinami Savar Rabbi Eliezer Kem Nechemia Shari the Tiltil Sakin Lo Aser Ela Midrabanan. That should only be Aser Midrabanan. So that is a kasha that you have to deal with in Rashi. But Rashi here says El Tzorch Tashmish, and again according to Rabbi Nechemia, you can only move the knife for its own tashmish. Veikar Tashmisha Shal Sakin Lo Lachto Chavolim. The main tashmish of a knife, of course, is not to cut ropes. Elo Lechem Ubasar V'Ochlin. It's for food. Tanakama doesn't hold like Reb Nechemia, therefore it's not a problem in muksa. Hilkach eruvo erev, the pasuk leilemistic, can cut the rope with his knife. Rabbi Eliezer Omer in beir avad hareza erev. Rabbi Eliezer says again, if it's in the city, it's fine. The chimid karlei, when you find the key ma'aseh derech karfifos, you can bring it. V'im besada ein erev the mifsak mino lo matzi Reb Nechemia. But if you can't find the key, or if it's in the field and you can't carry the key, so then you're gonna have a problem. You can't use a knife. That's going to be a problem, like Reb Nechemia says. The Gemara now continues with the Mishnah. Niskalgel chutz letchum. Let's say it rolls outside of the tchum. Rashi here explains. Niskalgel chutz letchum eino erev. Hol v'yesh mi beiso shulon sham ade ruvo yosem al payimamo. What's the case over here is, let's say from his house to where he is setting up the erev tchumin is going to be more than 2,000 amos if it rolled. In other words, it rolled outside of his tchum. He set it up originally 2,000 amos, or within 2,000 amos, away from his house. Now it rolls to outside that 2,000 amos. Now he has a problem. Wherever his shvis is, he's got a problem. If you're going to say his makam shvisa is in his house, so he can't get to the Eruv. If you say his makam shvisa is by the bread, where he put the bread, which is also too far away from his house, he can't get to it either, because he's already outside that tchum. So that's going to be a problem if it rolls outside his 2,000 amos from his original residence. So that's the first line of the Mishnah. Nafal olav gal, or let's say something falls upon it, a pile falls upon it, or nisraf, or it becomes burned. Truma v'nitzmeis mi ba'od yom, or let's say it was truma and it becomes tamei before Shabbos. Eino erev. In all of these cases, it is not going to be an erev. Again, this has rendered it either impossible to get to or impossible to eat. Mishachashecha, but if these things happen after it gets dark, hareza erev, you've already been kona the erev, and it's going to be fine. What about im safek? What about if it's a doubt? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer hareza chamar gamol. So Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda say basically the guy is stranded. We'll see in Rashi. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Omrim, safek erev kosher. But Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say a safek erev is kosher. Amar Rabbi Yossi said, Avtul mizheyin mishum chamisha zakenim al safek erev shekosher. Rabbi Yossi said that Avtul is testified in the name of 5 elders that a safek erev is in fact kosher. Rashi over here says, Nafal of gal mefarish begamar de boy mar v'chatzina lefanuye. You need a hoe and an axe just to get to it to have a malacha v'lo shvus. It's a malacha doraisa. It's not just a derabanan. Truma v'nitmeis the lochazio lo l'didei v'lo l'achrini. Once it's truma that becomes tummy, nobody can eat it. Mishachashecha kvar kana erev. Once it becomes dark outside, it's already a good erev. Bein hashmashas. That happened to bein hashmashas. The Shabbos hol v'hutra hutra. Once something is mutter on Shabbos, it's mutter. That's the end of it. Safek imivod yomi mishachashecha. Now what happens if it's a doubt? We don't know when this erev went bad. Hareza chamar gamol, which Rashi explains means the mesaf kolani kani le ze erev v'hachav beiso mehachi yesh lo apayim. We have a suffix. Is his house over here, and from his house he has 2,000 amos because the erev worked? L'chol ruach every direction. V'hifsid alpayim shemeyever beiso v'hala, and he loses out the 2,000 amos in the other direction where his original house was. Oh shem lo kana erev. Maybe the erev didn't work. Beiso yesh lo alpayim l'chol ruach. He's got 2,000 amos in every direction from his original house. V'lo kana le'ever eruvo klum. He doesn't have anything on the other side of the erev. What then happens is he's now only allowed to walk the 2,000 amos between his house and the erev. Because that's certainly okay. That wherever his erev is, the area between the erev and his house is for sure fine. But from the 2,000 amos from his erev and onward won't be good. Maybe the erev wasn't good. From his house, the other direction's also not good. Maybe the erev did work. The imagery is like a person who's leading a donkey and a camel. They're both pulling in different directions. He's kind of stuck. So that's the case over here. You have two possible places where his shavisa is. They pull in opposite directions, so it limits him to just the area that's in between those points. Gemara now says, Neskalgel chutz l'tchum. That was the original case in the Mishnah. Let's say the erev rolls outside the tchum. Amar Rava says, Lo shanu elash and neskalgel chutz l'arba amos. It's got to roll outside of 4 amos of the tchum. Avolasoch dalet amos, but if it rolls within 4 amos, hanose neruvu yesh lo dalet amos. The erev itself extends dalet amos, not going to be a problem. Rashi over here says, Hanosin is eruvu hoven eskavin liknos sham shvisa yesh lo arba amos. Person gets arba amos from where he has a shvisa. The hoel vanu arba amos mivlon betchuma. Now once his dalet amos is absorbed in his original tchum, from where his house was, havelu ketchum, it's all part of the tchum. V'havik hinosin is eruva bebayis shebesof vatchum. It would be similar to let's say a person put an erev in a house that was at the edge of the 2,000 amos from his original house. Shafilu elef amma mahalachas kula v'chutzala apayim amma. Even if the house is 1,000 amos, he gets the whole house and another 2,000 amos. You get the whole area. So the 4 amos is automatic. So it doesn't have to roll outside his tchum. It has to roll outside of his tchum more than 4 amos. Then it's going to be only then is it going to be a problem. Gemara continues at the 2 dots. Nafal olav gal. Again, something falls on it. A mound falls on top of the erev. Kasal kadaitach. Right now we think the boy motzi shakale, that if he wanted to, he could actually get to the erev. Rashi here says the boy shakale v'katani masnisin eino erev mishum tiltal avonim. The shvus derabanan. Who right now we think if he wants to, he can get to it if he just moves the stones. It's just an isser derabanan to move the stones because the stones are muksa. That's what we think right now. So the Gemara says leim masnisin delo karebi. That sounds like the Mishnah is not like Rebbe. The Rebbe, because if it followed Rebbe, Ha'amar kol davar shum mishum shavus lo gazru ala ben hashmashos. We've said already multiple times in the past few amudim that Rebbe holds anything that's a derabanan, anything that's a shvus, is not a problem ben hashmashos, so it shouldn't be a problem to move the stones ben hashmashos. Gemara says afilu tema karebi. No, you could even say it is like Rebbe, and even Rebbe can come up with a scenario where this is problematic. Lo tzricha, it's needed. The boy mar v'chatzina. Again, you need a hoe and an axe. You need utensils in order to get there. That's already going to be an isser doraisa. And the Gemara says with tzrichi, and we need to have both cases. Diton and nisgalgel, if we only have the case where it rolls out outside the tchum, mishum delesa gabe. That's because in that case it's not in his area. Avol nafal olav gal, but if a pile falls on top of it, disa gabe, it's still in the same zone. Eimal havi erev, maybe that would be a good erev. Viton and nafal olav gal, mishum demichsi, and in the case where something falls on top of it, it's all covered up. That's why it's not good. Avol nisgalgel, but if it rolls, zimnan dasi zeko maisile, maybe a wind will come and blow it the other way. Eimal havi erev, so maybe we should say it is a good erev. Tzricha, that's why we need both of these cases. And now just the Isser Doraisa that would be involved in using the hoe and the axe would most likely be the Isser Doraisa of plowing, because this is covered up by land, so that would be the issue. The Mishnah then said, nisraf truma v'nitmes, let's say it gets burned, or if it's truma it becomes tameh. Gemara says, lamali tana nisraf. Why do we need to learn nisraf for? And we'll see the continuation of this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis.